Hi, this is Murray Saul, Professor, School of Information Communications Technology at Seneca College. My non-contact semester has been studying alternative methods to using removable hard drives in our labs, such as SSDs or solid-state drives. I want to provide a background on why we need to do this, a proposed solution for ops235, a demonstration, some tips on how to use them. A little bit of a background. We don't have that much of an alternative for removable hard drives. IDEX switches are no longer being manufactured. We're moving towards virtualization, so we need transition strategies before ITS has them available, and we got to move towards, in curriculum development, VM deployment. This will have impacts on our OPS stream. Due to meetings, 235 will absorb bash shell scripting from 435, which in turn will be a Python scripting course to look at VM management and deployment. Proposed strategy is to have students buy SSD drives. Why? Because we wouldn't get into the BIOS booting issues from that. And it wouldn't have massive changes to what we currently do with our labs, and the students can take their stuff home to work on at home, provided they have the correct configuration and computer strength. Just like in ops235 lab, in VM Workstation, they create their host. Then within that host, they would create via nested VMs, the other VMs. Some advantages here: no backups required except for USBs for the KVM, the KVM VMs we create. These SSDs are lightweight, less prone to damage on high-speed operations, USB 3.0. No BIOS issues, relatively low cost, $150, tax not included, and students can get a license fee to run this at home. This is what it looks like. Lightweight, external, so they won't forget that it's inside the machine. And basically I have here that you create on that SSD a storage area in VMware. In this case, I already have this created, and I just simply open up and launch the host that I have stored. This was created at Seneca College, but I am running this from my home computer with not as much RAM that we have at the college. The Bandicam.com is basically just freeware for Windows capture. If anybody knows a better record my desktop like simple, well-working device or application that works in Windows as I use for record my desktop in Linux, send me an email. Anyways, you see it starting to boot up. I noticed that in the labs there's no major waits, and I'm surprisingly encouraged by how quickly it boots up on my home computer. These are Intel machines, and there are some concerns that with AMD computers there may need to be some configurations that we consider. But basically I'm logging into my C7 host. I press the Control-Alt-Enter key to toggle between full screen mode and window mode. When you're in your session, you should basically be in full screen mode as we are right now, and then go into window mode when we're ready to go, when we're ready to exit. Basically, now that I'm in my host, I'm launching KVM. In the lab number 1 instructions for modified ops235 are instructions on how to set up nested VMs. And basically, I'm launching a couple of, all 3 VMs. I have made changes, and since we are downloading an ISO to set up a C7 host, there's no point to download and install the GNOME Live, and in fact it's a bit of a disaster. Instead, CentOS 2 and CentOS 3 are now command line interface only, which is a good fit for OPS 335, since it's, except for the host, it's all CLI for the service, the servers. You notice that when it's in full screen mode, I can look down below and quickly select the different VMs that are running. I can press Control-Alt to release and then click to move to a different VM, and this is what I recommend and what's recommended in the labs. You see now I'm logging in to one of the CLI VMs. And basically just issuing commands. All 3 VMs are running right now and not seeing any discernible performance, and you wouldn't in a CLI anyways. Basically logging into this traditional CentOS 3 machine, and again issuing commands. And no terrible performance. For CentOS 1, what we did is just a network install without Kickstart, obviously, but just a simple network install, installing the full version. You'll notice it takes a little bit longer to boot up, but then again, this is my home computer, and I only have about 10 or 12 RAM. All the computer systems at Seneca College, or the computer labs, according to Scott, have or will have 16 gigabytes. I have been working there, and I have noticed that it is quite fast and it's quite pleasing. It's good to have a graphical VM to do things such as graphical configuration. And now we're at the login screen. Just simply typing in a password. And allows me access. Going in, basically opening up a terminal. Issuing commands, very fast. All 3 nested VMs are running. I'm quite pleasantly surprised and encouraged by the speed. In my observations, there's no problem for students to have a productive session for 2 periods, incorporating in the boot time with the VMs and shutdowns as well. You see I'm shutting down CentOS 1, which is the graphical. Moving to the CLIs, CentOS 2, CentOS 3. As root, you just issue the command shutdown space -sign lowercase h. You be patient, but it will work. I believe I've never had to manually shut down a CLI when using the shutdown -h command in root. And I have gone through this many times testing, more times than I care to mention. Which is a plug for people that would like to test this stuff out. Hint, hint. Wink, wink. Say no more. Just waiting to shut down. I know for the students, they think that 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds is an eternity. But I wanted to do this in real time, just to demonstrate to you how long it takes. And there, one has been shut down, one of the VMs. Followed by another, followed by the last. You notice that I'm now shutting off of the host. It will return me back to the VMware workstation menu, and then I press Control-Alt-Enter to toggle back and gain access into the area. Testing at first glance, I've successfully tested this out on Intel machines, both at work and home. Professors such as Andrew Smith are concerned with students that have notebook computers for their AMD machines, so that is being looked at. It's good to indicate copied as opposed to moved when you switch different machines. For OPS235 wiki changes, basically this should look familiar. I do have a different wiki simply because OPS235 is being taught in the traditional mode this semester. You won't notice notes, those will be added in. I recommend using Prezi, which are good to edit online and give you web animations and traditional PDFs. Where you'll notice the differences, different graphics indicating the newer setup, a more streamlined minimum required materials and reference points along one line. Newer screen captures taken, I believe 60 of them, so students can reference them. A new section on showing how to use VM Workstation and toggle to full screen mode, and some tricks that are there. Streamlining the commands in more table format and incorporating it in with Bash shell scripting, having the students enter in Bash shell scripts, which they did before. And the big one, or the big feature, are sign-off scripts. So basically scripts that are run to indicate if all is okay or if there's a problem, and either helping out the student or letting the student work the problem, which is what this course is all about. Here's a demonstration. All scripts are being placed in the bin directory of root that they create. It's more realistic that way. You get the shell script, and in this situation it says that there's a problem, that we haven't set up or disabled SE Linux, so the student's going in as root, making the fix to disable SE Linux, save it, rerun, and presto, everything's okay. Students will have to show the professor that. In fact, I recommend the students to show them the shell script and run it in front of the professor. Plus showing a few other things. What can you do to prepare? Well, there's many things. Contact Scott Apted to see how you can get an SSD. Perform the newer labs. The more you work on them, the more you'll feel at ease. Refer here to my wikis. Just pause and copy the URL. Compile questions while working on these OPS235s. Particularly labs 6, 7, and 8 would be greatly appreciated, although I comb through this stuff so much. I'm going to be on vacation, but Scott should be around. And I want to thank you for your time, and take care, and we'll see you at the end of August.